you for being here today. I have 100 SIM cards with 10 pounds of credit on them. Imogen, if you could stand up. Imogen's going to be standing by the door back there. Please only take the SIM card if you're actually going to put it in your phone and use it, because somebody else, if you're just going to take it home and say, oh, look what I got, and throw it in a drawer, somebody else here won't get their free credit. So, all right, so moving on from TPO, another huge bit of communication. So we've been talking mainly about websites and SSL, chat applications. So people who are using chat on their phone, using chat on their computers, talking to their friends. This is a huge proportion of internet communication, and it's something that is generally very personal. You're talking to family members, you're talking to friends. A few years back, we were in the golden age for spying on the general public. Virtually all chat was not encrypted at all. It all went in the clear. Anybody who could sniff your connection, whether it's the NSA or somebody on your local network, could see what you were saying on chat. It was a really bad situation. As I said earlier, a lot of privacy activists, security people were worried about this and complaining about this, but no one was really listening. It was very, very easy to spy on people. But today that's changed very quickly. And so before I go to the next step, I want to explain a little bit about encryption and the options that are available. And there's two major options. So the first level would be encryption between you and the chat company, but then they can read your message. You're just sending it to them, and so nobody can spy in between. And then they get your message, and they go, okay, great. And then they send it on to the person you're chatting with, and that connection is also encrypted. So that is a pretty good level of encryption. It stops your people on your local network from spying on you and things like that. But it leaves a huge vulnerability in the middle, which is inside that company. One of the shocking revelations from Ed Snowden is that the NSA had tapped into cables between Google data centers. So where Google thought, okay, your Gmail is safe from out there to in here, it's safe in our data center, it's safe in our data center, it's safe there. There was a hole inside the data center. Between data centers, they were tapping into those cables, and therefore were able to read a lot of internal Google traffic that they thought had been secure. So what you really want, this is a medium level of security, it's not bad, but what you really want and what's really better is end-to-end encryption. So when you type a message on your phone, it's encrypted by your phone, it is sent to your friend through the servers and back down to them, it's encrypted all the way, and it's decrypted at the other end. This is the best level of security, and as long as the encryption protocols work, as long as the math works, and this is the one thing I do believe, the math works. Sometimes you'll hear people who are skeptical and not very well informed saying, oh, well, the NSA's probably cracked all the encryption algorithms anyway. There is no evidence to suggest that they've done it, and no evidence to suggest that they are going to be able to do it anytime soon. So end-to-end encryption is really important. It's something that we really want to see for all chat and all discussions, so that everything that you're saying to your friend in private is actually held in private. So where are we today? So as I say, a few years ago, there was virtually no encryption. A handful of hobbyist apps and some of the smaller things were doing it. Often it was a very clunky user experience. You had to do a lot of complicated things. But a recent review by EFF, they reviewed, in apps, 39 apps. And so 38 of 39 encrypt in transit. So virtually all of them. You have to search really hard to shoot yourself in the head with security. But more importantly, 22 of 39 chat apps that they reviewed have end-to-end encryption. And then they had one more level. 8 of the apps had a perfect score for security. This is looking at things like perfect forward security, which basically means if they manage to decrypt one message today, can they decrypt your future messages? And they're not, because the encryption key is changing over time. Open code audits, open review of the code. There were several factors that they looked at to say, is this best practice? And we now have, and this is a fairly recent development, 8, and these are major chat apps with millions and millions, hundreds of millions of users, have a perfect score. So this is a good step forward. This is a really important trend that's happened just in the last couple of years. And it's important now to go back. So now I've given you a little bit of information about how it works and why it's important. And there was a statement by David Cameron, which I just think was astonishing. In a speech, he says, in our country, do we want to allow a means of communication between people which we cannot read, said Prime Minister Cameron. My answer to that question is, no, we must not. This led to a spate of news stories about how David Cameron wanted to ban WhatsApp. Well, anyway, it's too late, Dave, right? This is not going to happen. The genie's out of the bottle. The math works. And so when we talk about these kinds of things, it's important to understand that sometimes you'll read a debate in the press that is as though there are policy options on the table, which are not on the table at all. It is not feasible in any sense of the word for the UK to ban end-to-end encryption. Not only is it not feasible, it's a completely moronically stupid thing to do. We all have a very strong public interest in a very secure internet, and this is one of the ways that we're going to get there. So Wikipedia and SSL. So now we're turning back to Wikipedia and where we stand today. So as I said earlier, Wikipedia used to be completely in the clear, unencrypted. And so then we went through a long period of technical evaluation and preparation, which was massively accelerated when we saw one of the slides that from the NSA that made clear that the NSA considered Wikipedia traffic to be an easy target. It was a site that was transmitted in the clear, so it was easy for them to spy on everything that you're reading and everything that you're doing at Wikipedia. We've now gone to SSL everywhere. So everywhere in the world, when you go to Wikipedia, it's an encrypted connection. Just as a side note, one of the unintended consequences of the internet turning secure is there's a huge impact on search engine optimization and companies who offer search engine optimization companies. Why would that be? Well, when you click, you do a search at Google and you click, and there's a referrer. And in the past, the website that you're looking at could tell what you had searched on at Google to find it. So you could look at your search logs from Google and say, oh yeah, well, people are finding this page based on this keyword. And so this is something people are searching for a lot, so we can make more content about that, or we can make sure that that we're optimized for spelling errors and things like that. And so you were able to improve over time by seeing how were people finding you. With SSL, you can't tell what someone was just searching on at Google. And so the percentage of search term not provided in various analytics packages has gone from, there was always some of it, to very, very small amount. This is a period when Google was really moving everybody to encrypted search. So it's just a little funny side note that actually search engine optimization gets harder because when somebody comes to you from Google, all you know is they came from Google, not what they were doing at Google beforehand. So what are the implications of this for censorship? So we're talking about Wikipedia here. We're talking about we've gone to SSL. And so as I said, there was a long equilibrium for a long time. They were filtering certain pages. But as we were working to move to SSL, we had implemented it in many countries. We were rolling it out country by country, making sure it was robust. Just before we were going to roll out in China, they blocked Wikipedia again. So all of Wikipedia is blocked. We went ahead and went SSL only in China. And so now we're in a really interesting situation in China. With HTTPS, the only thing that the Chinese authorities can see today is if you're talking to Wikipedia or not. They can't see which pages you're doing, which means they no longer have the ability to filter on a page-by-page basis. So they can't block just Tiananmen Square. They now have a very stark choice. The entire country of China can do without Wikipedia, or they can accept all of Wikipedia. Right now, they've made the choice to ban all of Wikipedia, so it's a bit of a standoff. It's all or nothing. But they've invited me to China, and I'm going there in the next few weeks to meet with them and sort of see what we can do. So it's a funny bit of my career that I started as a technologist, and now I'm some kind of a global diplomat, and I have to go and talk to the Chinese government. But it's kind of fun. So the last thing I want to talk about is, we talk about these issues of cybersecurity, and when we talk about them in the context of the UK, it is sometimes hard for people to get their heads around what does it really mean. And we need to remember that our technology choices and decisions that we make here have impact on people all around the world. And last night I was on Newsnight and I spoke about a young man named Raif Badawi. So you've probably heard of the case of Raif Badawi. Raif Badawi is a guy, he set up a website in Saudi Arabia to talk about, to promote liberal values in Saudi Arabia. So it was discussions about the government. It was sometimes critical of the government. It raised questions about religion. The kind of open, normal, and by all reports, completely intellectual discussion forum that we would all recognize from the internet. You can see many, many places where this sort of thing goes on. But in China, I mean, in Saudi Arabia, this is a major deal. He was arrested and sentenced ultimately to 1,000 lashes. His original sentence was for 600 lashes. He appealed, and the appeals court said, actually, as a reward for appealing, we're upping your sentence to 1,000 lashes. They did 50 lashes back in January. It caused such an enormous public outcry, and people started putting pressure on the Saudis that since then, every week, there's the threat. Every week he's supposed to get lashes, and every week they continue to postpone it, but they've not canceled the sentence, and there's very little movement in that direction. I'm actually, what I said on Newsnight last night, is I'm calling on the UK government and David Cameron to say, look, we can't, there's an amazing thing, I had no idea this was happening, £15.9 million commercial deal between the UK government to help train the staff on procedures in the Saudi prison system. Whatever you may think about the necessity of Saudi oil and the economic ramifications of completely blockading them, there's no excuse for our government to be so complicit in dealing with the criminal justice system that is absolutely barbaric. And so I'm calling for the UK government to really drop out of those kinds of contracts, drop out of any support for Saudi Arabia, and really make it clear. The Saudi embassy, a couple months back, they issued a statement saying, because the government had said something negative about this case, we will not tolerate this kind of interference in our internal sovereign affairs. And I say, too bad. I mean, you're absolutely barbaric, and you will pay the penalty. So I think it's really, really important. Click, 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 click. Technology sucks. You can just forward it, yeah? Has the computer crashed? All right, well, we're nearly done anyway. To sum up, cybersecurity is very strongly on the rise. This is an incredibly good thing. We should keep up pressure as consumers on all the internet companies to say, keep our data safe, keep our communications safe and secure. And I just wanted to make one last point, which is the paradoxical point. The overreaching efforts to spy on the public have made it actually harder and permanently harder to engage in lawful warranted investigations. If we lived in a world where I wasn't concerned about the NSA hacking into a chat company, for example, to steal everybody's chats, if we didn't live in that world, I would say, actually, I don't mind. I actually don't mind if there's points in the network where with a warrant, with appropriate judicial oversight, you can actually listen in on people. That's not an absolute right. But because they've been so ridiculous and so overreaching, people are moving, and I highly recommend that you move to end-to-end encryption. And then they lose any possibility whatsoever. And that has happened now. It's permanent. And so there is a bit of an irony that the overreach has actually cost the security services any hope of doing what they would hope to do in a legitimate sense. So I don't know how much time we have left, but we're going to have questions. I think there's a microphone. Maybe you... Yeah, and can you tell me about the time? How?
Yeah, so you've got about 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes, perfect. Right.
Jimmy, Philip Ingram from Security News Desk. You talk a lot about human rights and what the tech companies are doing to look after people's human rights. It's also a basic human right of people to live in a safe and secure environment. So what do you think the tech companies should be doing to try and give the likes of David Cameron greater confidence that when there is something bad happening by the very small percentage of people who are abusing the fantastic facilities that are out there, that that badness can be stopped?
I think that the companies have a responsibility to be very responsive and very thoughtful about legitimate requests from judges with independent oversight. I don't think there's any real problem with that. I mean, we have a long history in open societies of the evolution of a whole set of parameters around probable cause, search warrants, subpoenas. That framework was created, and we're all still human beings. Like, the world hasn't fundamentally changed in such a sense that it somehow becomes legitimate to spy on everybody and everything that they're doing all the time. So I do think companies have a responsibility to respond to legal requests, and there is such a thing as a legitimate legal request. Trolling for and storing every single person's data is overreaching. Okay? Next question. Okay. I think we have 2 microphones, so if people want to raise their hand sort of on either side, then you can queue them up ahead of time, whoever you pick randomly. Yep.
Yeah, Steve Cassidy, PC Pro. You've talked a lot about trawling on the one hand as being a vulnerability, but your cases you've quoted have not been trawling. They've been people who've just made a simple public publication. So the guy in Saudi Arabia didn't hide his website, and it was found by a security services trawl. He published it. It was publicly visible.